My name is Mike Brown, pronouns he, him, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Hilltop Educator Institute, the professional development and community outreach arm of Hilltop Children's Center, a Reggio-inspired preschool on the traditional lands of the Duwamish tribe, the first people of what is now known by colonizers as Seattle, Washington. As a professional development institute focused on anti-racism, equity, and social justice, we have to constantly examine ourselves, our programs, and actively eliminate barriers to learning so we can all benefit from the knowledge and rich experiences of others. Over the course of the years, we've listened, we've reflected, and now we're responding to the calls of our friends in Tennessee, Indiana, DC, New Mexico, Canada, and more to make our offerings more accessible. So, welcome to our newest segment called Community Voices. Now, despite being short in minutes, these segments pack a powerful punch. They're rich in knowledge from leaders within the field, and best of all, they're free. So grab a pen, share with a friend, and as Hilltop Core Values says, let's learn in relationship with each other. Thank you, Natasha, for joining us today. We are so happy and blessed to be in your presence, at least virtually, to be able to have another segment of what we call Community Voices. So, once again, my name is Mike Brown. He, him are my pronouns, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Hilltop Educator Institute, which is the professional development outreach arm of Hilltop Children's Center, a Reggio-inspired preschool here on the traditional lands of the Duwamish tribe, also known as Seattle, Washington. So please introduce yourself to our virtual audience.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha Guerrero. I'm an early learning professional, and I also work at Hutch Kids with Fred Hutch. I also am the curator of childhoodyears.org, and I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences.
Fabulous. So let's just jump straight into it, right? So I know a little bit about your background, but you're from Guam. And I just want to kind of, well, first of all, how is it over there right now? Because I've never been, and most people I'm sure never been.
Yeah, Guam is a tropical paradise. It is smaller than Hawaii and it's my home. Like the beach is the backyard and I absolutely love it. Right now, all my family is there. And moving out to Washington has been a huge change, but I hope one day people can actually visit Guam and just experience the culture there too.
Perfect. So let's jump straight into it. There's just so much emphasis being put on activities designed to meet core concepts of math, language, literacy, art and creativity, science and movement. And rightfully so, right? We're living in this COVID world. And in that, play, mental health, social emotional considerations I see that it's kind of be put on the back burner. Now, most adults aren't experts in this field. So, in which ways can we support mental health, family connections, and meaningful interactions at home with our children during this time?
I think as an early learning professional, it's super important to be a supportive and collaborative partner with families. With the pandemic, there's so much disruption that's going on in our lives, and being able to utilize the current spaces, our community resources, and also others who are experts or if they're just had a shared experience is truly valuable. And what I would recommend is if you're looking for something for like a meaningful interactions with your child, there are applications and programs such as Vroom, and Vroom does science-based tips to strengthen family relationships. If it's something for mental health, that's something you can do together with the children in your family. And you can do something like UNICEF Kids. And I actually do that with my family and I love it. We do yoga, we do meditations, we do family workouts. And the great thing about it is you get a coin for each thing that you work out in. And 5 coins actually goes to contributing a meal to youth around your community or around the world. So that's truly empowering. And like if you want to even reach out to families and make sure they have those family connections, there are other organizations around Washington State or just even around the world. You can look at your local meetup groups. There's the Puget Sound Dads. There's also Seattle Family of Colors. There's Parent Help 123, and they actually help a lot of families find resources as well and get anything that they might have questions about, whether it be medical or whether it be just even about child development. So definitely utilizing those spaces and just being that advocate for them and supporting them during this time is huge.
Now you work at you have an interesting work space, right? So you work at Fred Hutch, which is both a, or you can explain it best rather than me just trying to stumble over my words.
Yeah. So I currently am a curriculum coordinator at Hutch Kids, and Hutch Kids actually supports Fred Hutch, Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, as well as UW. And right now it's very unique because currently Fred Hutch is working on the vaccines and doing a lot of research with COVID. So we've been supporting all of their scientists and their researchers and their doctors in fighting this vaccine and like also just being with their children and being that stable support. So I do that. And then I've also created childhood years, which I wanted to do. Specifically, first, it started off with my family. They were asking me for curriculum and for resources to support their kids at home. And I said, why don't I just create something that I can support all families here? And in Guam, there's not that big of an early education program resource facility that like NIAC or early achievers, they don't have that there. So I wanted to do that for them and also give them resources that they can also look at in Washington State as well.
Can you talk about some of the navigating some of the challenges it is working, especially with children who know that their parents or their adults or their caretakers are going off to find a vaccine? Can you speak to some of the challenges in terms of navigating those conversations with the children?
Yeah, definitely. I think I wouldn't say there's challenges right now. They actually see their families as superheroes and they're always just saying mom and dad is saving the world. And we like to frame it like that, just like, and they're also part of saving that world too. So they actually truly feel empowered. They actually tell each other, like, my mommy is working on a vaccine, my daddy is like doing genome testing, and they do all of these things. They actually talk to each other about that. And what's cool is they even share what each of their family members like talks about their experience, right? So if they're wearing a mask at home or anything, they share why they wear a mask. Some of them even talk about like what mask to use, which is really cute. They say, you know, you got to make sure that when you breathe that nothing comes out of your mask. So they support each other. They're like little scientists and researchers in their own selves. So it hasn't been a challenge, but it's been truly empowering just to be with them and have them recognize that their family members are actually making a difference and contributing to something bigger in society.
I love how you frame that because we do a napcast or a podcast over here at Hilltop called Napcast. And the last thing that we talked about is really from the perspective of two male educators of color. And I'm shamelessly plugging it because I am one of the co hosts. But, you know, our last episode, episode 5, we talked about the image of the child and really showing children as confident, as capable. And I really love how you framed it that these are scary times, these are confusing times that we live in, but children can handle it. And if we really talk to children like people, you'd be
Mhm.
surprised at just what they understand and they can absorb and deal with.
Oh yeah, they completely blow me away with what they say, and I'm really proud of them all the time.
So you mentioned earlier that early childhood years, correct?
Yes.
Right? Is that right? Okay.
Chat. Yeah.
Right. So that's a website that you started, and you regularly update your website with learning plans. And when I checked it out, I was amazed at how much innovation and inspiration, and really at the amount of provocations that was there. So I guess what was your source of inspiration?
Yeah, my sources of inspiration comes from the children, the families that I've worked with, and the teachers that I've worked with, even my nieces and nephews. And I not only from them, I also utilize programs around my community, like Look, Listen, and Learn is really big for me, as well as like UNICEF Kids, Conscious Discipline, and many others. The activities that I've curated focus specifically on creating an authentic learning experience that families can do in the comfort of their home and doesn't even matter what culture or race they're from. So I take something super simple and expand it to make learning visible. And with that, I have an example like the mapping the garden. And all children have to do is go to the garden and they have to draw what they see. And they don't have to do it at their garden. They can do it in a space in their home or even in a park. And from there, you can see their observation skills. You can see their descriptive language. You can see their reasoning and analysis. And taking that and really transforming it into something bigger and having giving parents the tools and the opportunities to expand on their learning is something that I value because as parents, they're their child's first teacher.
Mm. The making learning visible part.
Hmm.
Before I came to early childhood education, if you would have told me that, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? You need worksheets. You need, to sit down and crisscross applesauce and really do this diligently or military, like I'm sure how we were educated. So how are you manipulating the environments in order to do just that, to make learning visible, especially for communities of color? Because I don't know about how you grow up, it was very much like education looks like this. And if it doesn't match it, then my parents, being immigrants, they didn't quite understand.
Yeah, so what I do is like parents can introduce anything, even of their culture. So if they want to talk about whether like what they dress in or whatnot, like for example, my culture uses the mestiza. And if I were to bring that in, I can ask like my child, hypothetically, if they wanted to explore the embroidery and kind of like tell me what they see or like who do you think wore this? And if your grandmother wore this, where do you think she wore it to? And kind of go from there. So, like taking something that is even from their family home culture and building upon that, and like just seeing the process, the way children think and what they can get from it. Children think in many different ways. Sometimes we don't know where it's going to go, and we have to continue like scaffolding that learning and asking those open ended questions just to gain more understanding from them. So anything that they have in their home, whether it be from their home culture or something that they truly love and value, we can definitely take that little thing and make it something bigger.
Do you have any advice in terms of when you're inviting children and different families to bring in parts of their culture? How do you
Mhm,
honor that or just create a space which
mhm.
doesn't seem tokenizing? I'm sure a lot of white identifying educators out there might be asking those questions right now.
Yes, I think it's important to one be excited that they want to share something that's about them and their family and their heritage and culture. I think you have to truly value that and make the child be the voice of it and the family be the voice of it and never like take it over for them. Even though you may know what this is, you can ask them to describe and promote their experience and their cultural traditions about it. I believe that children who know what their culture is or what their family does at home, it's important for them to vocalize that and have that experience shared with others rather than anybody taking it over for them. So I welcome everybody to share whatever they want. They can come in one day and bring in anything they like, and I would be excited for them. And I would ask them, I'll give them the platform and say, hey, can you share about it? I would like to learn more. And like kind of gather all the children in, and we'll get excited together and we'll like just listen and learn with them. I think it's important as educators, we have to show that excitement and that we have to show that we want to be engaged with them and we truly value and respect them as well.
I was like, yes, yes, loved it, loved it. Going back to the website part,
Mhm.
what struck me is the first thing on your website is a resource titled "Are Kids Too Young to Talk About Race?" And as someone who engages in anti-racism training myself, and conducts it, obviously the answer is no, right? They're fully capable and confident, like I just mentioned. Yet some adults
Mhm.
still have trouble engaging in some sort in these sorts of conversations. So, do you personally have any advice or thoughts you like to impart on adults listening out there to help them prepare to have these conversations?
Definitely. That's a really great question. I would say to start with yourself first. Self reflection is an important preparation for facilitating these sensitive and valuable conversations. As adults, we do have to process how our experiences shape and hold our perspectives. I feel that it's also important to recognize that we are all beautifully unique by our hair, by our skin, by our religion, by our culture, rather than promoting the learning that all of us are the same and that we don't see in colors. I believe that we should all see in colors because that's truly beautiful. And when you want to initiate these conversations with your children, you can provide opportunities for them to explore race and explore culture. And you can do that by having dolls or books or music or even having a play date with other children and families of different races and cultures. And from there, I would say definitely respectfully listen to your child's questions and their answers, and teach children to challenge biases as also use productive tools to confront situations that may arise. But as families, even though we may not be aware of our own biases, I think it's important to be vulnerable with our children and say, this is something that I don't know and I want to learn with you. And that's really, really powerful to know that even adults, we may not know everything, but we're willing to learn along with our children. And this makes me think of a story. When I was teaching preschool, I had a child, and I will go ahead and change their names. A student called Haani. She was saying like, "You're poopy because you're brown," and Haani like turned around and she said, "Well, you know what? I'm brown because I'm Chamorro, and I'm really proud of that." And that was like, wow, that's amazing for a child to even turn around and just say that. And I thought about like what got her to that point. Of course, many factors go into it, like your family, like of course, like advocating for their culture and their race and their identity is like really important. And I also remember I would do affirmations in my classroom, and every morning we would get up on our chairs or stand up where we want to stand, and our children will all shout at the top of their lungs, and they would say, "I am great. I love me. I can do anything." And that was amazing. The transformations these kids have, their voices just elevated completely. And they would look at me and they would say, "Miss Tasha, I need to have a conversation with you." And I'm like, okay, like let's have this talk. But like just to really recognize that their voices do have power and they have meaning. And again, like going back to having these discussions with our children, be respectful, listen to their questions, listen to their answers. And if you don't know it, be vulnerable. Say, "I want to learn too. Let's learn together."
Oh, love it. I love the affirmation part. I'm like starting to get into like my love languages and stuff like that. And I was like, words of affirmation? Nah, it's not me. Give me all the gifts. And now I'm like, oh, long hair? Okay, you like my hair? Great. I love it.
Yeah.
um, with words of affirmations, can you recall any that your parents or people in your community has given you growing up that you were like, wow, I am, like you were saying, beautiful, I am strong, I am bold, I am innovative.
Yes, well, my family instills many affirmations in me. They're always telling me being moving to the States, they'll always say, like, remember where you're from. You are from Guam, you are strong, and we're called chamaritas for females. So you're a chamarita, you're strong, you're beautiful. You can and they're the ones who inspire me that says you can do anything, because when I was small, they always told me whatever you want to be, you can do it. If you have dreams and goals, keep going for it. But always remember where you're from. You're from Guam. Remember your island, and remember your island's always in your heart. So that's something they've always instilled in me up to this day. My mom and dad will always message me like, "Remember where you're from. Don't forget, you're from Guam. You're tomorrow."
I love it. I absolutely love it. So, like you were saying, you're coming from Guam. Um, just knowing a little bit, I think about the role of education and the preservation of the indigenous values native to Guam, your customs, your languages, your rituals, et cetera, et cetera. Then I also think about Western society. We have had an ugly and violent relationship with the first people of this nation. So, what can we learn from your culture on dignity, on respect, resistance, support, recognition, acceptance, as opposed to othering or assimilation. And can you think of it both on a systemic level and then how we can distill this down into our own classroom practices?
So, Guam has been preserving their culture for many, many years. We were colonized by the Spanish for about 400 years, and the US came in and they occupied us, and then Japan came in and they occupied us, and the US came in and they're here to stay. With that, with all the colonization and occupation, we weren't allowed to speak our home language, or we weren't allowed to show our culture, and that was a huge struggle for us, and it's something that we are still struggling to this day to preserve. And we preserve our culture through education. Children in Guam, they have Guam history, they have Chamorro language classes. We even have a whole month that we dedicate specifically to the Chamorro culture, which is March. And we have this from pre-K to the university. So every grade level, you're taking some sort of Guam history class, just to make sure that we understand what went on throughout our history and how we can preserve our culture. And it's been hard. It's been tough trying to preserve that when all of this colonization and occupation has like slowly just it's just quietly killing our culture, which is very, very sad. But what we do is using education as a platform and as a stage to vocalize about our identity, about the Pacific Islander culture, about Micronesia, about Melanesia and Polynesia, and also about the Chamorro people of the Mariana Islands. And we believe that when we have a strong, credible education, we will have stronger voices no matter where we go in life. And that's something that you would see a lot of Chamorros like moving out to the mainland to receive higher education, to be able to have that credibility in themselves. So I would say anytime you do have a Pacific Islander child or a child from any other culture, is really, really listen to them, listen to their families, and because their experience truly does shape how they act and how they see the world. And you don't know what's going on below surface level. I would definitely advocate for them and just like be that voice and that support for them, no matter what culture you're from, and if you don't identify with them.
Do you have any misconceptions about the island, or that us Westerners or mainland or whoever? Okay, you're already nodding your head.
Oh man, there's a lot of misconceptions that happen. So when I moved out to the United States or the mainland, I always would get like, where's Guam? And of course, like, okay, I would tell them, Guam is here. It's a US territory, just to help them kind of illustrate that. It's 7 hours from Hawaii, 3 hours from Japan. We're right in the middle. And a lot of times they would ask me, like, do you shell money? And I'm like, no. Again, US territory. And then they'll ask me, okay, well, do you use grass skirts? Do you like pineapples? Do you like spam? Like your English is very good. You hear that a lot. And a lot of times when I even tell them I'm from Guam, they're like, are you sure? Are you sure you're not from Guatemala? And I'm like, no, I'm from Guam. And they tend to would be like, okay, well, you're Guamanese then. I'm like, I'm not Guamanese, I'm Chamorro. And then they'll go on like, well, Chamorro sounds like a dish. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. It's actually, that's the native people in Guam, right? So there's a lot of misconceptions. A popular one that has been circulating around the US for many reasons is like Guam also has a lot of brown tree snakes. So when I came to the US, they'll ask me like, did you bring snakes here? And I'm like, no, I did not bring any snakes. They're like, well, you're from Guam, you must have it in your luggage. I'm like, no, I don't. Actually, the US introduced that into our island, but you know what? I don't have those. So there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of times we get bundled in with Hawaiians, and a lot of times people are not aware that there are other races other than Polynesia. There's, Micronesia, there's Melanesia, we're all Pacifica. And just teaching them about that has been a struggle, but I still keep going. No matter what, I still try to educate people that yes, I'm from Guam. Yes, my last name is Hispanic, and this is why, and this is my culture, and this is who the Chamorro people are.
Mm. How do you, so I'm hearing a lot of microaggressions and racial insensitivity, if I can say that word correctly. How do you
Mhm.
heal from that?
I heal by educating them. I don't like to just brush it off. I definitely want to teach them in that moment because any other Pacific Islander that they may come across, they might have that common microaggression or misconception. And that's my way of healing because we were very suppressed, in Guam, and like we don't even have a voice from our island. We have a member in Congress who doesn't have a voice. We have the highest military enrollment, and we can't vote for our own commander in chief. So I do my best to continue to educate people. Like this is what we see currently and daily, and this is about our culture, about our heritage, about our language, and you should really listen and not just say things of just random things that you think it's funny because it's really not. So definitely I want to make sure that they're educated about it, and that's my way of healing.
Thank you for sharing that. All right,
Yeah.
going back to your website, so
Mhm.
could you just talk a little bit more about what they can expect on it, what they can see? How would you imagine them interacting with it?
I imagine so I would say that my website is something I'm continuously building. And you would find it's specifically ranging for preschool from 3 to 5. And I definitely want to open that up from even prenatal to age 8. So
Mm,
specifically for the early childhood years. So you'll find activities and resources in math, science, language, social, emotional, and many others. You'll also find a lots of resources to get books online too. You have also teaching resources for teachers who want to pursue more in professional development. There's also resources to help them in their classroom or to support them in Washington State Stars, and also for families. I do have a lot of resources for mental health, meaningful interactions, and many others with that. And so when they go there, I hope that they can explore and they can go deeper into those websites. And I specifically chose those websites because I feel that it's important. There's a lot of content that's out there, and it's hard to navigate through them. And I hope that people will see my website as a value and it's been vetted. So it's something that I look at completely and make sure that, there's proper information that's going out there and it's not something I'm just pulling out of anywhere. So yeah.
And what would you say? What's one piece of your culture, your identity that you think shines through this website?
So for me, I would say for my culture, we're always wanting to help out everybody, no matter what. And Guam, like you can just come to Guam for the first time. Someone's gonna give you a ride from the airport to wherever you need to go. They're also gonna feed you. They're gonna bring their whole family and have that camaraderie with you and be like, hey, like let's show you the half a day spirit. A half a day means hello, and we often use that phrase half a day spirit. So you would see people welcoming you and just wanting to help you in all shapes and forms. So for my website and for my culture, I wanted to help the community around, and I believe that that goes within the Guam teachings of making sure you're helping your brothers and sisters of the islands and from everywhere around the world.
Thank you. I guess well we talked about your website a lot, but I haven't even you haven't shouted it out. So, what's the website, what's the domain? We gotta give you love.
Yeah, my website is childhoodyears.org.
Perfect. So really I have one last question. I always say I always have one last question and then a million more pops up. But the last question I have is once again, the US has had a long history of whitewashing curriculum and an intervention strategy to strengthen children's self-identity and resiliency is to take stories, right? And to align them with their local cultures and traditions. How
Mhm.
have you adapted popular nursery rhymes, tales, and stories from your own culture? And then how have you made it relevant to the cultures in your classroom?
So Guam doesn't have many nursery rhymes to begin with. We actually take US nursery rhymes and we translate it into our home language as a way to teach children the Chamorro language. But we do use a lot of our Chamorro legends to tell stories of teamwork and how to show respect and honesty. One thing that comes to mind is the big fish that ate Guam. and it talks about Guam is very narrow in the middle, and the big fish ate both sides. And the females on Guam, they came together and they wove their hair and they made a huge net to catch this fish. And I've taken that concept, one, to also show that, you know, female empowerment, that females can also do things too, but also to show that, you know, we come together to work for the greater good. And I've asked children, like, so remember the story that, or this legend that I've told you? And they was like, yes, Miss Tasha. They were like, share that with me. And I say, like, what are some ways that you work together with others? And I get different answers. Some of them would be like, well, I work together with my church and we decorate the church together. Others would be like, well, I work with my family when we make lumpia. And like, I'm just like, yes, that's great. So you're taking something from my culture and learning about the message and like kind of transferring it from others' experiences in your life. I've also taken the alphabet, especially of my culture, and like kind of introducing that, and welcoming others to share their home language alphabet and kind of noticing the difference. A lot of times, the children that I shared this with, they'll often ask me, why do you have two A's? Or why is there three N's? Or why does your C have an H? And this is like a great way to introduce how our language are so different. The way we spell sometimes may look like script, or sometimes it just may look different. It may have like a little dot on top. And, you know, just like kind of introducing that and that awareness that there are other cultures and languages around the world. So I definitely want to use my culture not only to emphasize about the Chamorro culture and the Pacific Islander heritage, but also other cultures around too.
So once again, I said I had a last question. Here I am. So you mentioned, I think earlier, that there's not a big emphasis in early learning in Guam, right? So can you talk about what the differences or what some of the learning curves that you had to experience or go through when you first relocated over
Yes, I will be honest, like coming out to Washington, I didn't know too much about early learning. I was very focused on primary education, and I went into a childcare center and I became a floater, and then from there a teacher, and I went on and so forth. And I was just like, wow, early childhood years is so important. The foundational years, like you can't just ignore that. And I fell in love with that and I pursued it. In Guam, I've noticed that there's just more of a focus on primary, secondary, and higher education. So there's no standards and policies in place to make sure that every child on Guam has an equitable, high quality learning experience. And there's no opportunities for teachers to have that professional development to beyond an associate's degree. But even with that, the associate's degree program doesn't really emphasize about child development, just random pieces of education. So I was just like, wow, Guam really needs this, especially because the only accredited program on the island is actually on Anderson Air Force Base, which many locals don't have access to. So I saw this need, and I actually have been working with the senators of Guam to actually get a program and policy and standards in place, and have more professional development opportunities for educators. I want teachers there to be seen as valuable too, and I want early education to be recognized in Guam, because it really isn't. It really isn't. And I hope that the Chamorro people could see that when you give a child quality high early education, they will have so much success in life, but they need to be able to have access to it first. So I've been working on that, and that's part of like my side project, my passion, my goals in life. But yeah.
So basically, I need to get your autograph.
Maybe not yet. I've been on the phone with senators and the vice speakers of Guam, and I'm hoping that we can still continue this process of creating this for everybody, and just gotta get it. We gotta get it going somehow or some way.
Absolutely. So you said you said you worked in primary education, primary schools first, and a lot of the times, well, my first initial question was, what could early learning learn from primary schools? But I want to flip that on its head. What could primary schools learn from early learning?
Social emotional and the early childhood years is so important. A lot of teachers that I have worked with in primary education, they struggle with social emotional skills of children. And, for children to be successful, they also need to have strong social emotional foundation and skills. So with that, like really, really hone into it, like see the child for who they are. And children develop at all different paces. And we need to be able to meet them at their level and not hold them at a specific bar just so they can meet standards. In order for students to be successful, we need to grow with them, help them learn, get them to that, not get them to that level instead of just saying, you need to be right here. And I think that's important. So when I do work with my primary education teachers, they often come to me and be like, what do I do? Like, this child is not motivated. How do I get them motivated? And, I talk to them about that. And it's something that we do on a daily basis as early educators. And it's so natural for us now. And going into primary education, we see these teachers that want to know more about social emotional skills, but they may not have the knowledge or the learning experience that we do in early learning. So I would say definitely build on those relationships. Those are key. Build on those social emotional skills and really truly see the child for who they are.
So what viewers aren't going to see is our chat offline. And when I said, "Oh, I'm going to ask you some questions and try to coax some answers out of you," and that was absolutely one right there. So well done, good job.
Thank you.
um, Second to last question, promise now.
Okay.
The more you talk, the more I just kind of think of more things I want to ask you. And um, I want to talk about, or can you provide some insight or some advice that you would give somebody who's coming from Guam or the surrounding islands that are coming stateside into the mainland? Um, what's some advice or insights in just starting a career in early learning, working with education? Can you talk about some of your, just your experience?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, of course, just like what my mom and dad say, is remember you come from the island. Remember where you're from, first of all. I have to put that in there. But also remember that people may see you differently.
Mm,
And it's going to be hard to change that perspective, but you have to face that adversity and power through it and remain strong and resilient. No matter where you go in life, you're going to still continue to educate people about who you are and your identity and your culture and your heritage. And that's okay. It's going to be exhausting, but you got to keep doing it. For early learning, I would say you are a person of color, and that's truly valuable. These children need to have that experience to be able to interact with other people that is of a different race. And you're part of that. You're part of that memorable experience with them. So wherever you go in life, you're going to continue to educate. You're going to continue to hold your island or where you're from true to your heart. And you should be able to be happy and to be excited about sharing your culture and never, ever, ever try to shut it out. Continue to use that voice and have a power, but be strong, be resilient, keep educating.
mic drop right there. Love it. Okay, this has been fantastic. I really love getting a chance to know a little bit more about the work that you're doing and just your knowledge, your expertise, your insight, your advice, and it's really invigorating even the work I'm going to do moving forward. So I really do appreciate you taking time out here to be on the segment.
Yes, and I thank you so much. The work, again, like I cannot say it enough. The work that you're doing is truly empowering. Just to even recognize community voices and even yourself on Napcast, like that's exciting. And I actually look up to that, and I want to do something too like that, because you're actually making your voice be heard, and you're making sure early educators are seen too. And I really appreciate that. And I'm truly grateful to even be in your presence and to even have the opportunity to speak with you.
Now I'm blushing. All right, last thing, because I said two last questions. I guess the last thing is, do you have anything that you just like to share or shout out um, right now? Maybe your website again, some of the additional projects you're working on.
Yeah, definitely. Visit childhoodyears.org, again, childhoodyears.org. It's very important. Visit that. I'm going to keep continuing to update the websites. I'm going to put learning plans, and they also have videos that go along with it. And I'm going to continue finding those resources. And if anyone ever has questions on maybe a resource that's not on the website, they can definitely contact me via the website, and I will definitely do my best to find that for the community. So yeah, I hope you all visit.
Thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Thank you as well.